The move to cloud computing is the move to IT as a utility. That utility is what you get for paying just for what you need when it comes to information technology resources. That is a huge cost savings for businesses. It gives them the ability to outsource everything that they used to have to maintain, control, and pay for as infrastructure. That outsourcing gives the business also a new agility to move and adapt using information technology now as a resource, as a strategic advantage in leveraging how they can use cloud going forward. The biggest thing with cloud computing that's an inhibitor right now is the impact of security. How do you control and take ownership over your information when you're outsourcing where it sits, where it resides? In the past, the information technology folks were really all about physical controls. They understood exactly where their information was and how they could get control over it. When you move to a cloud, you move to a virtual world where you don't have those physical confines for your information. So how do you safeguard and create trust in the cloud? How do you actually enable use of the cloud? Broad adoption of the cloud today is being inhibited by the lack of good security practices and good security solutions. In order to actually enable the cloud, we need to enable trust and build that overall trust into how cloud computing goes in the future. Our enterprises and cloud providers are both in a transition centered around trust. They need to really look at what's going to happen as they migrate from what they start with, which is minimal trust. And initially, our deployments will be just getting trust based on what they currently do today. Over time, we're going to see that trust evolve and emerge through a new set of solutions and processes that get deployed along with what is put into the cloud by the enterprise, and also what we see the providers giving to the enterprise in their overall cloud solutions. In order for that trust to be established and for both enterprises and cloud providers to have a win-win, we're going to see a complete integration of trust as an overall service that's provided throughout the cloud. When you're moving to the cloud, we're taking what used to be the physical trust that you had in actually controlling and containing all of your information, and we're moving it to an outsourced environment. So we have to do that in a series of stages. In enterprise, we basically are used to controlling by encrypting that information with physical devices and understanding the actual data flow that information that's needed to be compliant is taking. When we move to the cloud, we have to do this by actually moving that trust that we have over a series of stages. So the first stage that we actually move it into is basically limited trust. So in limited trust, basically what we have is we're taking those physical assets that we had here and the physical security controls we had here, and we're moving them into this virtual environment. So we're taking a piece of what we actually do inside the enterprise and we're moving it into the cloud. So that basically gives us limited trust. We can actually take that small amount of information that's sensitive and carry it into the cloud. In the next stage, what we want to do is take that capability of actually working with that in the cloud, that information before we get it to the cloud, and moving the process over to the cloud. So what we do in that stage is we take the same physical appliances or virtual security appliances and we launch them into our own cloud space that we're basically leasing as a resource or as a feature. That allows us to do some of that security or encryption services directly in our own cloud environment. In the last stage, when we have compliant trust, when we completely trust the cloud. Those services are provided back to us. So the cloud provider is actually providing back to us the service of protecting our sensitive data. And then we have our own anchor of trust that we use to basically contain and control the key material, the secrets, or the actual policies and credentials that are used to access and give complete information within that cloud. So when we actually are using what the cloud provider delivers to us in the cloud, that anchor gives us control over our secrets, the key material, credentials, and policies that we use to control that information. The cloud can only operate on our sensitive data when it has the materials that are in the anchor. So we can take that anchor away at any time and know that that information that's sensitive in the cloud is safe and secure. So today, when enterprises are moving to the cloud, they're moving with minimal trust. But the actual cloud security is pretty straightforward. The reason it's straightforward is the information that they're actually moving to the cloud is in the form of two buckets. Those two buckets are basically sensitive and non-sensitive data. When you look at the use cases of the sensitive and non-sensitive data, you basically have two key areas where we're seeing enterprises use the cloud today. The first, for non-sensitive data, is taking advantage of those software as a service capabilities that you have, and all the information that's stored there excludes things that fall under compliance or regulation, including things like personally identifying information. That sensitive data that they're moving to the cloud is encrypted before it's sent to the cloud. So it's always secure and safe. And for that application, it's primarily today backup and archive, where they can take advantage of the unique offering of elastic or ever-growing storage and the cost advantage of only paying for the storage you need to hold that sensitive data. While the approach of separating data into sensitive and non-sensitive buckets is sound, it limits the full value you can get from cloud computing. As enterprises move to the cloud with limited trust, they actually will take what they have in their own enterprise and deploy it in the cloud. They'll take their traditional security appliances and host them in a virtual private cloud alongside of their applications and services, or they'll take a virtual security appliance and run that in the cloud, giving them full access to the hybrid multi-tenant environment the cloud provides. This gives the enterprise more control over their information by actually synchronizing or federating the identity and other data information between what's in the enterprise and in the cloud, and giving them the data protection that they need for that sensitive data as they begin to move more of that trust and applications into the cloud. So in order to get full trust in the cloud, cloud providers need to begin to actually do what we call trust as a service. This gives them compliant trust that the enterprise can actually take full advantage of the cloud. The cloud provider gives the enterprise through either virtual or physical appliances and solutions that they launch as their own services, a way to actually protect information as it flows freely through the cloud. At the same time, the enterprise is given control over their identities, the key material that's used to protect that information, and all of the other policies and assets are anchored as a root of trust back with the enterprise or information owner. This root of trust enables a full use of the cloud provider's security capabilities running either physically or virtually within the cloud. but gives the enterprise owners that control that they need. In this scenario, the enterprise can take advantage of the cloud in all of the ways that they would see possible with both their sensitive and non-sensitive data. And the cloud providers are providing security in the form of trust as a service.